Maybe you've started gardening on your property, planted some natives, even started removing lantana. But then something happened that a lot of people don't really warn you about. Your plants struggled. You have 10 new species of weeds growing, and you're totally overwhelmed. You did your research and invested a huge amount of time and effort for it all to just feel like a failure. In this video, I'm going to run you through everything I wish I knew before I started, all the mistakes I made, and all the council support or government support that you might have access to. At the beginning, it's going to feel like you need a degree in ecology, but the reality is you only really need to understand your particular block. So let's get into your personalised plan. The majority of the information I'll be sharing today is specific to South East Queensland and the Logan City Council, but the principles can be applied to any state. So where do you even start? I only discovered this information months into my journey, and it is the single most useful information that you can have. They're called regional ecosystems. A regional ecosystem is a classification system developed by the Queensland Herbarium that describes the distinct plant communities that naturally occur across Queensland. It's mapped to soil type, landform, and climate. Each one has its own code. It tells you what plant species belong on that land and what type of soil you would expect to find on this block. So let's figure out how to find your specific one. So first, we want to find our own personal location. So today I'm going to use Daisy Hill Conservation Park as an example. So you will need the coordinates of your location. So to get your coordinates, you can right-click anywhere on the map and it will bring up the area and your coordinates. Write these down and we'll need them later. There's two websites we can get our regional maps from. So we're going to use this first website from the Queensland Government. I'll put the URL up on the screen for you. We scroll down and you might as well get all the maps you can, and it'll just give you an idea of everything about your property. We'll use central coordinates. So you'll want to enter those figures you got earlier. Just to 4 decimal places is all you need. And then enter your email and request your map. Then you'll end up at this website and you should get your maps within 2 hours. However, it can take a little bit longer, could take a couple of days. The second website will give you access to a couple more maps. And while you're doing your research, you might as well get all the information that you can. So we'll click all of those. For this website, you need your lot number and your plan number. So we're going to go to this next website to grab that information. I'll put the URL on the screen. So what you can do is you can use your address, lot on plan, or coordinates. We have our coordinates from before, so I will enter these. And then you submit. So you'll want to use this information on the top. So it is lot 2, and this is its plan number. So lot 2 and plan number. Enter your email and then request your map. Once you've done that, you will get to this and all the requests have been sent. Once you receive your emails, you'll receive something like this. When you zoom in, all these numbers here, these are all the numbers of regional ecosystems. So let's type one of these in and try to grab the information. We'll start with this one. So simply type in the regional ecosystem and the numbers exactly as you find them. So I try to look for more specific areas. So like the city of Moreton Bay, healthy land and water, it does really well too. And Gold Coast City Council's regional ecosystems are really informative as well. So let's open a couple of these and have a look. I'll try to find the healthy land and water. That's this one. And let's see if there is a Gold Coast. I'll have a look at this one. This Gold Coast one is showing a different regional ecosystem here. But what you can always do is sometimes you might find in your area that you have small patches of these ecosystems. The Gold Coast regional ecosystems usually include images, which I find really helpful, especially at the beginning of my journey. And it shows you what trees are suitable for koalas, if you're interested in that, or the glossy black cockatoos. So that's the forest she oak here. So this area actually exists in my home. And when I walk around, it's easy to see that I have a lot of these plants. So I know I have tallow wood and small fruited grey gums. I have brush box and forest she oaks. It's a high chance that you likely have this ecosystem if they are naturally occurring there already. This Moreton Bay region ecosystem has the exact number that we're looking for. It is a little more basic, but it does show you where the regional ecosystems can be found. And here it gives you exactly the grasses, herbs, sedges, shrubs, etc. that you would find on your property. When you start planting out, I would start with these. Often you can find a list comprehensive enough to get started with. As you learn more and over time, you'll be able to add more diversity. This is a regional ecosystem report done by Griffith University. If you live near Griffith University, this might be useful for you. However, it really shows you how much diversity can be in such a small region. There are multiple regional ecosystems, so it's easy to see how even you and your neighbour's blocks could be completely different. When you scroll down, you find the regional ecosystem we were looking for right here. It's more of a documentary of what they have on their property, but it does give you a little bit of an information of what kind of eucalyptus trees you might find, ground cover, that sort of thing. But this in itself, probably not the most helpful. You just have to search a couple of regional ecosystem documentation to find the perfect one for you. This is an example of a healthy land and water regional ecosystem. Healthy land and water have great lists of the native plants that you might find on your property. My favourite thing about the regional ecosystem information that the Gold Coast offers is they have this. They show you kind of how many trees you should have, what the shrub density should look like. And if you have an area, say an acre, and you work out, okay, I can plant 800 plants in this area, you can use these figures to figure out how many of those should be canopy trees, how much medium trees, how much shrub, and how much grass. So you can work out your numbers that way. That was my favorite way to use this. This last website is called WildNet, and instead of the land, this is more about animals and plants. So this can give you a list of all the animals and plants that have been recorded in and around your area up to a designated radius. So to do your search, come into Location Search By and choose a specified central point. Fill in your latitude and longitude information from before. And I'm just going to go a distance of 10 kilometers. I did 10 when I did mine, and I came up with over 30,000 hits of plants, animals, and insects. So it is a lot of information. So if you want to keep it concise, I would go with 1 kilometer. And then you search. So what WildNet will give you is this list of all the animals, plants, insects, everything that has been spotted and documented within the kilometers that you decided. So it breaks it down into these families. You've got kingdom, class, so animal, insect, the family of insect, its scientific name, its common name, and this will tell you if it's vulnerable, endangered, or any of those types of things. So finding out that there has been a Richmond birdwing butterfly spotted in Daisy Hill is pretty cool because they don't often come this far south. They used to go all the way down to Byron Bay, but now they're mostly just seen in the Sunshine Coast. So there's only ever been 1 sighting recorded and total sightings. So you can have a look and see these are all butterflies here. So these are all the sightings that have been recorded. So if you are into butterflies and you want to see what kind of butterflies are in Daisy Hill, here's your list. That link will bring you over here and give you further information about it if you want to learn more about any particular animal. But what I like to do, or what I did at the beginning, is always use the scientific name when you're researching something. Otherwise, it gets too confusing. So definitely always search with the scientific name. So this is the Richmond birdwing butterfly, which is vulnerable. So you can use this tool to look up species that might be around your area and what you might be interested in cultivating on your property. So most of my knowledge is in South East Queensland and specifically the Logan City Council, but I did do a quick search in Victoria to see what their kind of systems were like. So I found this government website where you can figure out what council you live in Victoria, and you can click whatever area you live in and it comes up with the council that you live in. Often when you Google council information, every council has different strategies and tools available. So City of Casey in Victoria has this great Gardens for Wildlife information, and they also do this great Indigenous plant guide. So most councils have some form of this, and I'll show you a little bit more of this a little later in the video. But this one's online, which is perfect. You can scroll down, it shows you what zones it's in. It tells you how the guide works, what plants to plant, and then it's got this chart here. So it tells you this plant needs full sun, doesn't need a lot of moisture, birds love it, butterflies love it. I don't remember what these are and how big it gets. And then it gives you this kind of information here. These are great if you know that you want to attract possums to your house, and then it tells you a little bit about how it was used previously. These types of guides are really informative and very helpful, and often you can find them easily online. Now that we have a solid foundation, we can start to build on it. My best advice when starting gardening is just find what you're passionate about and start there. Do you love birds, frogs, butterflies, or do you want to create a refuge for gliders, flying foxes, or the endangered koala? Finding your starting point will help motivate you and allow you to create a clearer plan. My journey started with wanting to create a low-maintenance garden for my mum. My dad used to take care of the garden, but after he passed, the lantana just started taking over again. My dad joined Land for Wildlife 10 years ago, but I just didn't really understand what that meant. So one day I received an email saying that there was a talk about butterflies. Little did I know, that that butterfly talk would change the trajectory of my whole life. The more time I spent out here, the more obsessed with butterflies I became. I realized I didn't have a lot of the host plants that a lot of them really needed. So then I started researching that, and then it really just snowballed from there. A wildlife garden boils down to 5 simple things. You need food, shelter, water, connectivity, and diversity. A crucial point of a wildlife garden is water sources. I've got a little pond here, and I know snails live in there. And then I've got this larger pond here that birds like to bathe in. I've got a couple of tadpoles living in here as well. Shelter for frogs and insects usually looks like piles of rocks. Logs stacked together. There's some scorpions living in here. And just branches piled on top of each other. The thing lacking a little bit here is connectivity. It is a little open and exposed, maybe not with all the weeds growing at the moment, but it leaves animals a little exposed to come and drink. While my example is more of a micro garden level, let's zoom out and have a look at what connectivity looks like at a community level. So these are all the properties bordering the Daisy Hill Conservation Park. Some wildlife species have difficulty living in or moving around developed landscapes. They require a continuous link of suitable habitat between 2 vegetation patches in order to safely move across the landscape. Examples of animals that require continuous corridors include small mammals, small reptiles, small ground-dwelling birds, and non-flying invertebrate. Some animals that might be able to use more of a stepping stone habitat include birds, pigeons, lorikeets, flying foxes, and flying insects. Mosaics of habitat might be suitable for animals such as kangaroos, wallabies, and magpies. But before you start any project, you want to see what you have first. Working against nature will create a lot of effort in the long run. The reason I chose this area is because it gets really swampy here. When it rains, we have water rushing down through the gully and down through here. First, you want to choose where to start. My recommendation is find some trees. So we've got 3 trees here, a water gum, that tree, and this eucalyptus. What I like to do is I like to plant between my trees. So eventually you're reducing how much mowing you have to do, and these plants will grow up and fill this space. So between that tree and this tree, I've planted some Dianella, blue flax lilies. I've got this lily here. I planted 3 lomandras here, this one's getting nice and bushy. I've planted a Richmond birdwing vine here. It's actually still alive. They are notoriously hard to grow, unfortunately. And I planted a fern here too, which didn't make it. A small project like this is a great way to start, and you don't want to overwhelm yourself too early in the process. Otherwise you'll lose motivation to do anything else. When you think of the 5 components of a wildlife garden, what's missing at your place? Would you benefit from a small water feature? Or do you have an area between trees that you could plant out with natives beneficial for insects? If you're lucky enough to be the guardian of multiple acres like myself, then you kind of have to put your blinkers on a little bit. There's no way you're going to be able to tackle all of the weeds at once. And trying to do so is actually going to turn into a massive nightmare. You want to start from small areas and work your way out. This is actually one of the basic principles of the Bradley method. The Bradley method is the most recognized bush regeneration method. It was developed by the Bradley sisters in the 1950s. The Bradley method proved that natives would naturally recover and outcompete weeds given the chance and the time. The Bradley method has 3 main principles. Principle 1 is work from your best areas to your worst. Number 2, disturb the soil as little as possible. And number 3, allow the bush to regenerate before you move into the next section. This is a great example of where the Bradley method worked successfully. From these grasses, this all used to be lantana up to here. I cleared about 4 meters and I've let it regenerate naturally. I haven't touched this area for about a year and a half, so to only have the lantana growing about 20 centimeters, that's pretty good, easy to get on top of. So what are some of the mistakes I've made on my journey? Before I knew anything about regional ecosystems, I got a bit carried away with trying to plant plants from WA. I found them so beautiful, but unfortunately none of them survived in my environment. Last financial year, I was blessed to be a recipient of the EnviroGrant by Logan City Council. This grant allowed me to embark on a project much larger than anything I could have ever done by myself. All of this used to be lantana. The project I came up with was to regenerate this area, to heal the creek and allow areas for koalas to wander through our property. Having never attempted a project at this scale, I had no idea what it would be like. That's the thing too, you will make mistakes and you will learn, but that's all part of the process. The thing is, I also didn't truly understand my regional ecosystems very well. While I had done an area previously, which I've shown you before, that barely has any regrowth after a year and a half, this area is completely different. This is a riparian zone. Riparian zones have some of the most fertile soil, which means, unfortunately, the tobacco trees are going to move in. Did you know that a tobacco tree can spread 200,000 seeds a year? As you can see, they have all ended up here. Mistake number 2, overclearing. I had a team come in and help me. We did it all by hand and we ended up clearing an acre of lantana. The problem with having a team come in is that I just haven't been able to maintain the further weed growth that's come back. While the growth of the tobacco trees was a little unexpected, I am now using them to my advantage. Because these tobacco trees are growing so densely, they're actually shading out any other weeds from underneath. So they're actually controlling the weed population. Another mistake was underestimating the regrowth of the weeds that would remain. While we removed most of the lantana, all of this inchweed remained. Removing this by hand is incredibly time-consuming. Because this was all covered in lantana, we didn't really understand the true scale of what it would mean to remove this. Clearing this area, we didn't really use the Bradley method. That's my next mistake. We used more of a traditional method of clearing a whole area. This is the kind of result that you might get if you used heavy machinery or slashers and just cleared large areas at once. It was great that we did it by hand. We did find a lot of trees that popped up and we saved them. While overclearing has left me with a lot of work, it has also left me with new natives popping up. I've got a whole heap of these native hibiscus and they're massive. This guy's only about 6 months old. As soon as all the clearing had been done, I started planting out. So I was able to plant over 750 plants in this area. So at least I've got that going for me. I have managed to maintain this particular area. All the native grasses are growing back. This will be my new native area that I continue to use the Bradley method with. Moving from here outwards will be my best bet. My last and final mistake is timing. Here in South East Queensland, our summers get really hot, 30 to 35 degrees, and plants just simply don't survive. Plants I planted in September, October, November, they really struggled. In my particular area, I often receive rains later in February. They didn't come till May this year though. So moving forward, I'll likely only plant when that second rain hits at the end of summer. The moral of my story really is less is more. Start with a smaller area, clear it, wait 3 months, see what grows back, and move that way. Trying to clear an acre at a time, even with help, is a lot of work. If this video has made you realize that maybe you need some support and you live in the city of Logan, you could apply for the EnviroGrant too. You've probably missed the key dates for this year, but you could apply for next year. This is a list of all the funding that's available. If you're a private landholder and you want to do some weed clearing on your property, you would choose the on-ground ecosystem restoration, and you can apply for up to $10,000. The Queensland Government offers a range of grants and funding as well. If you're after a wildlife grant or an environmental grant, then you can check these out too. Another really helpful resource is connecting to one of the environmental conservation partnership programs. My dad joined Land for Wildlife 10 years ago, but I didn't really understand what that meant. For you to join Land for Wildlife, you need at least 0.5 hectares of habitat or habitat under restoration. 0.5 hectares is about 1 acre. With Land for Wildlife, there's no extra grant funding, but you can apply for an EnviroGrant and you get free annual incentives. So the way that incentives work is that you get 30 points per hectare that you have. You can use these points for plants, herbicide, or nest boxes. There's some books that you can get as well. If you have a larger property and you have 1 hectare of good quality habitat, which is about 2 acres, you can apply for the Voluntary Conservation Agreement. You get the same things as Land for Wildlife, but you get an extra $3,000 grant every year. You will work with a Land for Wildlife officer who will help you create a plan, and you can work through this together. If you have less than 1 acre, you can still apply for Habitat Connections or a Voluntary Restoration Agreement. Through Habitat Connections, your only incentives includes plants. For the Voluntary Restoration Agreement, you need waterway frontage. Our waterways are particularly vulnerable, which is why this exists. If you are lucky enough to have waterway frontage, you can apply up to $3,000 annually as a grant. You also receive free annual incentives, but those are plants only as well. Joining Land for Wildlife is free. If you live in any of these councils, you are eligible. Today, I'm going to share my favourite resources and the ones that helped me the most. This is the ultimate beginner guide for how to attract butterflies to your garden. This is my favourite book on butterflies. You have coloured illustrations of all the butterflies, and it includes the caterpillar stages and the chrysalis stages. This is really important information when learning about butterflies. This book is specific to South East Queensland, so it wouldn't be beneficial for any other states. This book is by the same author as this one, but this focuses more on foods that we as humans can eat as well that we share with butterflies. It's a great read, and if you love bush tucker, then this is the book for you as well. This book covers all the butterflies of Australia, but not all the plants they recommend are native, some of them are exotic. So I prefer these other ones for that. Because environmental weeds are such an issue, most councils have their own booklet about it. So this one is from Redland City Council. This is Logan City Council's. This is Scenic Rim Regional Council. And this one is by the Weed Society of Queensland. Some councils deal with worse weeds than others and are affected by different weeds than others. That's why some of these books can be a little bit different. All these resources are free, and if you attend any local council event, it's likely you would be able to get one of these. All of this information is targeted at plants and how to create a wildlife-friendly garden. You won't be able to get a Mangroves to Mountains for free, but it's very useful. Mangroves to Mountains documents all the plants that might occur in your area. This one's a really fun one to just flick through and see if you can identify any of these plants at your place. This is the native hibiscus that's regenerating in my riparian zone. This is also a great guide to see what native plants you like and that you would want to plant on your property. This book is divided in regional ecosystems, basically. So you've got eucalypt forest, coastal heath, freshwater wetlands, and rainforest. So you'll be able to pick exactly the right plants for your area. I really found this Native Plants of Logan really helpful because it's got all the information that you need. Its aspect, how much sun it needs, how much water it needs, and what animals are attracted to it. If you want to create a wildlife garden specifically for animals, this is a great guide for that. This one shows all the threatened plants of Logan. A great guide to make sure you're not accidentally pulling out endangered species. I have successfully managed to reintroduce the native jute on my property. This guide shows you how to create a wildlife-friendly garden, some animals, how to break up your property, this is Redland City Council's version of their plants. They also include what animals benefit. It's great to have a variety of these because often they show different plants. That allows you to create more diversity on your property. And finally, these resources focus more on animals and bush tucker. This is a great beginner guide on how to attract native birds to your garden. This is a great guide on tracks, scats, and other traces. If you can see that there's animals on your property, but you can't quite figure out what they are, then that's the guide for you. I love growing bush tucker plants, so I used this to decide what bush tucker plants were suitable for my property. The only thing with this guide, and with all bush tucker plants, you have to be so careful. There's a few plants in this book that they say are edible technically, but they do require really intense preparation. Always do your research and make sure that you are identifying the plant correctly before you attempt to eat any bush tucker plants. Remember, just because it's edible doesn't mean that you might not have an anaphylactic reaction to it. So please be safe. This book shares the types of animals that might be on your property if you live in Logan. It covers fish, ants, bees, butterflies, dragonflies, and the mammals are at the back. This is a great guide. It's also free. When starting out, I recommend just sticking with the information that your local council has for you. It will be the most relevant to your property, and you likely don't need too much extra information. If you have many waterways, you might be interested in the invasive fish of Australia. There's guides on the nocturnal birds. And there's guides of the reptiles of the scenic rim region. Over time, the more events you attend, the more booklets you'll receive. If you are comfortable with technology, I recommend downloading iNaturalist onto your phone. iNaturalist is an app on which you can upload images of plants and animals, iNaturalist uses AI to see if it can identify what you've uploaded. It's pretty spot on, and it's amazing what you can get with even the worst quality images. iNaturalist is worldwide, so you can use it anywhere. I'm going to scroll down and see what observations people have uploaded today. This snake looks pretty cool. So when you click on the observation, it shows you where it was. So it's in Arizona in the US. You can zoom in and see whereabouts it was documented. The great thing about iNaturalist is that a lot of scientists use this app. So they'll come on and they'll verify what you've uploaded. Someone has uploaded a woodland strawberry. And here a second person has verified that species. Here's a quick tutorial on how to upload an image on the app on your phone. When you open the app, you end up on this page. As you can see, I have over 700 species on my block, which is amazing. You come down and you click on this green plus button, choose an image from your phone, or you can take one. Then you'll come down and you'll click on location. I'm just going to use Daisy Hill as an example. So with location visibility, you can choose open, obscured, or private. Open will document the exact coordinates. Obscured will show the coordinates within a 20-kilometer range, but will protect the exact location. And private doesn't show the location at all. If you happen to find something rare or endangered, just make sure to put the location as obscured, just to protect the animal or the plant. Then we go to the what did you see? And now it's searching. It has identified that it's this type of genus of scorpion. So we will click on these opposite arrows, which means compare. This allows you to see your photos compared to other photos that have been documented. You can compare your images. The cool thing about these guys is that they actually glow under UV light. This is just the genus of the scorpion. I wouldn't know the specific species, so I'm just going to select that. Finally, you'll just come down and you'll select the tick in the green circle, and there you go, it's uploaded. You can also record sound and find out what species they are through that as well. The best place to get your plants is from your local bush care group. Two groups worth knowing are Bulimba Creek Catchment Coordinating Committee, also known as B4C, and Save Our Waterways Now. They operate out of the Enoggera catchment. They have great information on the weeds in their area. These are Enoggera's worst weeds. Save Our Waterways Now has an extensive library of plants to plant, and this is their list of Enoggera catchment plants. This website is great because they focus only on native plants. Sometimes native plants simply don't have a lot of information about them simply because they're not cultivated. They also have information about seed collection and propagation. But just remember that all plants are protected under the Nature Conservation Act 1992. Seed collection is strictly prohibited or heavily restricted in national parks, conservation parks, and World Heritage areas, and you could be fined heavily. Additionally, collecting from threatened species or restricted species, such as grass trees, usually require specific permits. Plants you'll receive from these places will have been produced through local seed stock, and it's sourced from the same ecosystem that you're trying to restore. They're genetically adapted to your soils, your rainfall patterns, your insects, and your bird communities. A plant from your local provenance nursery will establish faster, integrate better, and support more wildlife than the same species grown somewhere else. It's worth seeking them out before you try and buy them anywhere else. Things to be aware of when you're collecting plants or moving soil between sites. Fire ants and soil-borne pathogens are a real concern in South East Queensland right now. Make sure you check your footwear, your tools, and your material you're moving. Never receive soil from an unreputable source. If you want to support this kind of work, there are 3 ways depending on what you have available. If you have time, volunteer. Most of these groups run regular working bees. You'll learn more in one day in the field than you will from months of reading. If you're in a position to give financially, become a member. These organisations run mostly on volunteers. Even a small annual membership makes a difference to what they can do. And if you know anyone who might be interested in this work, share it with someone who might care. A neighbour with a bush block, someone who just bought acreage, or someone who's starting to pay attention to their land. Every little thing makes a difference. And finally, my 2 favourite commercial nurseries are Peyton Park Native Nursery. They are found in the Gap. They have one of the best native plant lists out there. I used this very heavily in finding what plants were suitable for my property. Peyton Park's information will always tell you how large it gets, the aspect, how much sun, filtered sun, what soil it needs, and what habitat it lives in. They also tell you what special features that plant might have, like if it's bird attracting, a butterfly plant, drought tolerant, where you might find it, and if it's a host plant for something. My second favourite nursery is Indigiscapes in Capalaba. Both of these nurseries are incredible. I'd love to know what projects you've been working on your property. Share them down below and share any tips or tricks you've learned along the way. Join me in my next video, where I'll teach you how to create your own water feature on your property.